This meeting is recorded. Kindly state your name when speaking for the record and have your phones and microphones on mute when not speaking. Attendance is taken from Zoom participation. And with that, I will turn the call over to Benjamin Akinmuaje. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brenda. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NCUC webinar on civil society participation at ICANN. I'm excited to see everyone. My name is Benjamin Akinmuaje, NCUC EC Africa rep. I'll be moderating today's webinar with Olga Kirilyuk, who is the NCUC EC rep for Europe. Before we begin, I would like to recognize the NCUC chair, Raphael Borigalok, who is unable to join us today due to unforeseen circumstances. So for the past 3 years, NCUC has been working with ICANN.org in order to offer opportunities that would enable the constituency members to increase their policy skills and better participate in the policy development processes, and would enable constituency members to increase their policy skills and better policy writing processes. So also taking up leadership roles. Therefore, building on the successes of past NCUC policy writing courses that we've conducted in the past, we developed this webinar with the help of our colleagues in ELAC and NCSG and EMPOC as well. We also work closely with ICANN staff to plan this event through the ABR process. The original plan was for this event to be held face-to-face around the typical ICANN meeting. However, in the face of COVID-19, as we all know, the pandemic, which has affected every sphere of our lives as we actively participated in the ICANN processes, this has reshaped everything to virtual now. So towards this end, this webinar is bringing together some of our pioneers and active participants who have vast experiences in ICANN policy development process to share their experience and brief background around the civil society participation at ICANN. So it is our expectation in today's meeting that all attendees will have better understanding of the civil society work at ICANN, and they will be motivated to engage in the ICANN PDP process and other IG-related processes. The general objective is to increase our constituency advocacy skills, cooperation opportunities, and identify advocacy spaces and policy development participation toolkits. So I'll be moving on to the agenda as has been displayed here. So what I just did right now was the opening remarks so that we all could know what we're here for today. So the first action of the day is to have our first speaker, who is going to be talking to us on what it requires to participate in the policy development process. And I'm going to be introducing to you Fazani Badi, who is the former NCSG chair and a former GNSO counselor. I hope she's around. Fazani is a very good, experienced member of the constituency. Fazani?
Yes. Hello. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Hi, everybody. So I know that I'm supposed to be talking about how to develop a policy position for civil society at ICANN, but in order not to bore you to death and go through all the GNSO council kind of like processes and stuff like that, I'm just gonna give you a high level, maybe inspirational statement. And I'm not going to talk about a talk for 10 minutes. That would bore you even further. Okay, so apparently a former ICANN CEO had called NCUC the old grumpy uncle in the attic. He's not here anymore, but we are, because we are a collective. We are not an individual or just one organization. We are not grumpy nor irrelevant. We have one of the most vibrant communities at ICANN. We have had some of the most diverse executive committees. We single-handedly contribute to much of the diversity on GNSO Council. We try to be receptive to new community members, and we have term limits, which is very important for including newcomers in leadership positions. It can also help us bring new blood and new approaches to the policymaking processes. This is what civil society through NCUC has been doing at ICANN, bringing new approaches to these policy processes and policy development. We have developed a set of values over time that we adhere to, which mostly are derived from human rights principles. We care about freedom of expression. We challenge the securitization of the DNS. We demand privacy for domain name registrants and want to keep ICANN transparent and accountable, and its mission limited to technical matters. And we don't want ICANN to be a content regulator. If you look at other civil society groups that work on digital rights outside of ICANN, you can see that in most cases, they are never involved with actual policy making. The decision maker is someone else. But at ICANN, we are in this great position to get involved with decision making and policy making, and we need to strategically use this position to bring change, considering it well-established values that we have. Crafting policy position as a civil society group, of course, comes with its challenges. Sometimes we lack collective action, sometimes we are under-resourced, but ultimately it is that collective action that leads to crafting a strong policy position that resonates with most of the members. Civil society values, at least as NCUC, are cohesive, but we do face disagreement. Over time, we have crafted our policy positions by relying on the above mentioned values. We sometimes revisit these values and readjust and add to them. But the most important action that we need to take and have been taking is to come to consensus as a group by compromising collegially and engaging with policy discussions at NCUC. We need to understand what real consensus is, which is not the opinion of one person or one group, nor even the minority. We get engaged. It's the including the diverse set of opinions that the civil society has. Through transparency, informing members about the ongoing issues at ICANN, we have been able to develop some of our most important policy positions and been able to advocate for them. For example, we have a strong stance about privacy protection in WHOIS. While we do compromise when it comes to working with other stakeholders to develop a policy, our position about privacy does not change. And our compromises should always consider our values. Civil society at ICANN is not a vanity fair. We are not here to develop policy positions on our own. We are here to act together and not be reactive, but proactive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fazani, for that motivation, not talk, on that push. Pardon me, friends, I forgot to share our schedule for today's webinar. Fazani just finished her, it's supposed to be about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, 5 minutes talk. So we're moving to the next section, which is about a few questions that I'm supposed to ask some of our very experienced members who are here also today to guide us on participating in the policy development process and advocacy at NCUC. So I'm just going to go with the first person, who is Milton, Professor Milton Muller, and he is one of the co-founder of NCUC. And I'm going to pose the question at him, which is, how was the environment for civil societies at ICANN when NCUC was established? But before he takes on the floor, it's important to let everyone know that we have about 15 minutes for this whole section. So each speaker is roughly around 5 or 4.5 minutes. So being time conscious will really help us to get most of the audience views, and we'll be able to do a good justice to this conversation today. So over to you, Prof.
Well, thank you, Ben. I think I should thank you, but I had a conversation about this, and I actually did not want to answer this question because I think it's backwards looking, and I wanted to look forward. So I was told going into this that I would be talking about what is the environment for civil society ICANN supposed to be in the future, and what kind of issues will we be dealing with in the future, and I would much rather do that.
And Milton, I think I've actually got the backward-looking question. So
okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, turn it over to Kathy.
Okay, so on the request of Milton. So Katy Kleinman is also one of our co-founders, also very experienced and very supportive. If you want to learn anything around the policy development process, she's a go-to person. So Katy, can you take it away, please?
Yes, please. And I'd like to share my screen. Thanks so much, Benjamin. I'm so sorry Raphael couldn't be with us. And because I talked so quickly, I put some slides together that will help me stay on track and maybe help everyone see. Okay. Sharing screen. Let's go back and okay, so the question I was given was, what were at first the aims and purpose of non-commercial representation at ICANN? And this is a great question. And as Benjamin mentioned, I'm the co-founder of NCUC with Milton and others who were there at the start, but we're not that old, and don't call us pioneers. It makes me feel old. But I was the drafter, of course, with lots and lots of edits of our original NCUC charter. And so NCUC members are civil society, but also public interest groups, academics, and individuals. And we dedicate ourselves to a concept, which is a little different than some of the other stakeholder groups. We dedicated ourselves at the start, and I think we still do, to protect and support non-commercial communication and activity on the internet, including personal and political speech, research and educational communication, and expression about hobbies, interests, and ideas. So non-commercial speech. And so note the nice parallel this provides to some of our other stakeholder group friends, including the commercial stakeholder group, which is largely dedicated to protecting business, commerce, and intellectual property. And now I'm going to kind of repeat a little of what Farzi said, because what is true now was true then. So our work dates back for 20 years seeking balanced ICANN policies. From the very beginning, ICANN's very first consensus policy, we fought for and created Section 4C of the Uniform Dispute Resolution Policy, clear rights for registrants when there are domain name disputes. We've been working on proxy and privacy and who is protection for civil society organizers, political dissidents, parents running websites, non-commercial websites for Little League and other children's activities. Our members, as far as he said, collectively have spent tens of thousands of hours deep in the policy development process and other types of ICANN work. We do the work, we get in and we do the work. So overall, we have a long and proud history of protecting free expression and free speech, supporting fair use and the right to words, kind of the counterpart to trademark, absolutely seeking transparency and accountability across ICANN and preserving due process, including the idea that registrants should be treated fairly and not lose their domain names, which is of course the speech of their organizations, without clear reasons agreed to in our ICANN policies. So I'm going to encourage everyone to continue our work and traditions and to jump into the policy work, the comments, the policy work, and help us with the important work of the Non-Commercial Stakeholder Group. Thanks so much. Benjamin, back to you. And the Non-Commercial Users Constituency. We've just got a wonderful history. So I will stop sharing my screen. I hope I stayed in time, and thank you.
Okay, you did a great job. Thank you, Kathy. And I hope the members will also have access to the slides.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm moving on to the next speaker. Milton, are you ready now? Or
I will. I will need to share my screen too.
okay.
I can do that now. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Okay, host.
Milton, try again. I have promoted you to co-host. Thank you.
All right, can you all see that? Isn't
Yes.
that my title
Yes.
slide? Looking to the future. We are not grumpy old uncles. We are young and thriving. So quickly, I want to say that I think one of the biggest issues facing civil society and ICANN is simply the role of ICANN to traditional governance of the DNS should be independent, global, and based on a new model. And we have seen increasingly sort of erosion of that principle. For example, with respect to the WHOIS and privacy controversies, we have seen the US, some US interest groups threaten to go to the Congress to get legislation when ICANN does something they don't like. And now we're seeing, disturbingly, the European Commission do some of the same things. And of course, there are many countries who are more authoritarian and sovereigntist, and they don't like the idea that this sort of policymaking entity that they don't control would be governing the DNS. So that's something that we need to be very aware of, because this is a system, for all of its flaws, that gives civil society direct access to policy making. Privacy and data governance is going to continue to be an issue. We have sort of resolved the WHOIS issue in the temporary time, but it continues to be a point of battle. And again, we have various kinds of governmental regulations, territorial regulations impinging on ICANN's authority. And again, the most recent and interesting example is coming from the European Commission, which is passing what they call NIS2, Network and Information Security Regulations or directives that are directly trying to regulate DNS governance in a territorial fashion. Cybersecurity is going to intersect more and more with the things that ICANN does. We don't have time to go into the specific issues, but cybersecurity will be invoked in various ways. Am I out of time?
No.
Okay. Europe, US-China tensions. This is sort of reinforcing this first issue that I mentioned, the role of ICANN in relation to governments. Governments are becoming more nationalistic. And then there's content moderation and control. And as Farzana said, we don't want ICANN to be involved in that. However, there will be continued pressures for internet governance and the management of the infrastructure to be dealing with problems of content moderation. And you have some interesting new multi-stakeholder experiments in content governance, such as the Christchurch call or the global counterterrorism initiative of the big platforms. Some of these try to include civil society, some of them sort of exclude civil society. So we have to keep an eye on that. I will leave it at that and hope that we can get into some discussion later.
Thank you, Milton. I want to encourage everyone that we're going to still have Q&A session at the end of today. So keep your questions, and if possible, you can even type it in the chat. We'll move next to the next speaker, who is Adam. Adam Peak is an IG expert, internet governance expert, also an ICANN staff, but today is going to be sharing his IG experience with us. And I hope we pay attention and just learn from him. Is he Adam?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Benjamin. Next slide, please, Brenda. So yes, I'm a member of ICANN staff. Before, when was it? December 2014, I was a member, active member of civil society. I joined NCUC about a year after it started. I was an ALAC member, so I've covered all the ICANN bases there and involved in various other things. My question, you'll see at the top, I was asked, and I thought I'd try and reverse that, because from my perspective as somebody from ICANN staff who works with civil society, I'm very interested in how you as civil society members in ICANN actually influence and have influenced global and regional internet governance policy processes, because you have, and I think it's important to recognize that. And it goes to a point that Farzaneh made, which was that, you know, other civil society organizations historically have not been involved in policy making. And that is the very different point of view and experience that people from ICANN have brought into other processes, that you have that experience and you also have that passion. We have that passion, and I think that's incredibly important, and it will be important as we look at the processes that Milton's described. So the next, the new processes that Milton described. So the next slide, please. This is going to be his sort of historical. Early on, we didn't really talk about stakeholders. We were just people who were interested. The notion of stakeholder governance came about mainly because the Clinton administration at that time were quite passionate about it, as well as pushing electronic commerce and all those good things. They actually believed that the internet was interesting, different, and they were quite excited by how stakeholders around the internet formed around an issue, formed groups around that issue, and started to solve them. And the way that was sort of first implemented and realized in a big way was ICANN in 1998. So we can jump to the next slide, and a shout out really to Kathy and to Milton, and particularly Milton's story, the NCUC story, which sort of began in very early 1999. And it's a history of NCUC, but it's also an history of how stakeholders, different constituencies representing different points of view and different interests, came together to advocate for those interests. They built the multi-stakeholder processes that we enjoy today. They built inclusive processes, they built transparent processes, and accountable processes, not immediately, but over time. And this is something that not just ICANN civil society has done, but all ICANN participants. But I think very much you have been the drivers of this. So while Kathy and Milton and others were creating the NCUC and working on the policy development processes, others, I remember Wolfgang Kleinvector, Izumi Aizo, Vittorio Bitola, these people were interested in how do you represent the netizens of the world in these processes. In ICANN, we were mandated to include very strong representation of users at large. And these people were interested in that aspect of civil society, about representation of users. So a year later, a couple of years later, you guys had this experience. You were working in processes where you were in the room, you were being represented. And all of a sudden, the United Nations system came up with the World Summit on the Information Society to look at and to develop principles around information society as it was emerging then, And from that, of course, we've seen some extremely important institutions grow, the Internet Governance Forum and all the national and regional Internet Governance Forums that have come from that. So that was quite an interesting time. You had people from the ICANN communities coming into the World Summit of Information Society, and they were the ones who were initially probably the strongest advocates for these basic multi-stakeholder principles. It was what they were used to doing. It was what we were used to doing. We were used to being in the room. We were used to having a voice. We were used to acting as peers. This was not the case for global civil society at the time. Again, going back to Fazene's point, they weren't making policy. They were advocates for policy. And this was a passionate time. 1999, you're all too young to remember, but I am a grumpy old uncle. We had massive WTO riots in 1999 in Seattle. Globalization was absolutely something that was on civil society's agenda, and it was very controversial, and there was a lot of anxiety and, quite frankly, demonstrations about it. So when we went as representatives from ICANN into some of these civil society organizations, they were pretty negative about it because they saw it as adversarial. They were concerned that consensus-making policies were going to, in some way, co-opt civil society principles, and that was a concern. I am absolutely not saying that NCUC and at-large members and so on were the only advocates for multi-stakeholder processes, but they were certainly some of the most vocal in those early days and have been throughout. So over time, we got 3 minutes or 15 minutes a day to talk at WSIS, and we pushed, and everybody pushed, and now today we see this ICANN experience really coming into all internet governance processes. Wherever internet policy is discussed, people talk about multi-stakeholder. The latest example is a declaration from G7 digital ministers. They talk about multi-stakeholder. They don't talk about leading processes. They talk about working with others in processes, about cooperation. Absolutely different from how you would have seen this in 1998. So the next slide, please, and that's my final one, because I know we do have to hurry along, and I hope I'm not speaking too quickly. So, yeah, you were among the first to promote multi-stakeholder processes in WSIS, in Internet Governance Forum, in global internet policy, and you have most definitely influenced global civil society and global and regional internet governance processes. I mean, you are the guys who have, over the years, created national and regional IGFs. You have created schools on internet governance. You speak at those schools. You speak at all these different processes. So I think, I can be grumpy, but you shouldn't be, because this is really quite an outstanding achievement if you put it in its whole. And of course, you create and develop internet policy for the DNS. So I will say thank you. And yeah, good. Onwards.
Thank you, Adam. That was awesome. I mean, we are not a grumpy bunch, and what our spaceship looked like, and the prof told us other things. So thank you. I think we have come to the end of this section, but I think we still have about 3 minutes. Oh, yeah, we still have about 2 minutes. If there was anybody that left out something of very great importance that you just want to say to the audience amongst our first few speakers, you could quickly use a minute or two before I hand it over to Olga to take up the other section of this webinar. And then at the end of the day, we could have questions and answers. Anyone? Katy, do you have anything? A minute or two?
I think the history really shows an arc of participation. And I just wanted to share with everyone that the outcomes are never clear when you get involved in these types of activities. I mean, it really involves everyone sitting down, talking. Farzi said, looking at our principles. I would say looking at our charters and our missions, and really thinking about the future. A lot of people in ICANN think heavily, but particularly in civil society, we think heavily about the future. And that's one of the things we have in common is what kinds of values of an open internet do we want our grandchildren to have? And I started talking about that before I had children. So you know, it's we try to keep a big picture. We try to keep a long run. As Milton said, there's lots and lots of pressures against what we're doing, but the vast majority of internet users are using the internet in wonderful and legal ways, and in so many ways we're the voice for them. So Benjamin, thank you. That's kind of my thought coming away from the wonderful presentations.
Thank you.
Benjamin,
Someone has his hand up. Christopher, we just have only a minute. Can you quickly do that, Christopher?
Yes, very quickly, Christopher Wilkinson for the record.
Yeah.
I have some reservations, and I'm sure that most of you will not be surprised. First of all, as Adam has explained, the development of civil society in the ICANN context has been essential and has been remarkable, but it's not good enough yet. And one of the reasons that we have so much intervention from governments and is indeed that the governments have not yet trusting the multi-stakeholder model to achieve the balance and public interest that they require. There are several examples of this, some of which Milton has explained, has referred to, but I think the problem is that civil society in ICANN is A, divided, and B, far too much power has been delegated by the board to GNSO, who, pace NCUC's participation in GNSO, you've not been powerful enough to stop serious abuses, notably in the area of competition. I think I'm sympathetic to those, including previous board members, who've told me that there is a concern of capture. And as I said in a recent chat, we may not yet be dealing with a cartel, but we're certainly dealing with a group of very large companies which are trying to control the system. It's not good enough, and it won't last unless we can rebalance ICANN. And I think the merger between at-large interests and NCUC interests must be formally and thoroughly implemented and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Yeah, we're far behind time right now, but Fazani is asking for 30 seconds because I'm in charge and she's my friend. Can you have it? Quickly, Fazani, 30 seconds.
Yes, well, basically, I just want to vehemently disagree with Christopher. I think that the power has been bestowed upon the government. The government in ICANN and GNSO is not the most powerful here. However, we have had a lot of influence in, especially when it comes to the discussion of privacy, in WHOIS, as well as stopping ICANN from becoming a content regulator. We have not been. We are trying, and we are going to make. We are trying and we are collaborating with other stakeholders, and I think we are pretty effective. The other thing that I wanted to say was about the one thing that I forgot to say is that we want at NCUC, we want to stop government overreach and intellectual property overreach at ICANN. And we see that, and we are monitoring this. We are looking at what GAC is doing. We are looking at what the intellectual property constituency and business constituency is doing, and we are aware of the issues, and we are going to stop them. Thank you.
Okay, so we're far behind schedule. I know the prof is Milton is asking for 10 seconds. I don't know if he's going to keep to that, but this is now August session. Milton, do you really want your 10 seconds? Yeah, my mentor.
Well, I just think we have to be very careful when we hear talk about rebalancing the ICANN representational process, because this is what we hear every time a particular interest group doesn't get what they want. They say, oh, we need to rebalance the representation. And in fact, they've been doing that. For example, the WHOIS policy is not being made by the GNSO by itself. It's being made with a specially created group, which has been stacked with advisory committees, which are not formally supposed to be making policy. They're supposed to be advising on policy. And when we get into this game where we start reconfiguring the representational process every time we make a controversial policy, that's a real blow against a stable, well-defined governance regime. And it's all done for very partisan special interest reasons. So yeah, if you're talking about capture, don't talk about rebalancing, because that is a reflection of capture when you talk about sort of changing how people are represented in order to achieve a particular result. I'll leave it at that. Sorry.
Thank you, everyone. A lot of issues has come up today, so that leaves a lot of room for all of us to get into the game, get in the field, and get busy, just to do what is needful and to make our voice clearly heard. So at this point, I'm going to round up my session. Thank you, everyone, for your speeches, and as well, we'll just hand it over to Olga to take us to the next roundtable. Olga, it's now your turn. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, and many thanks to everyone who was speaking just now. I believe that was very interesting and very insightful discussion, and it's indeed we have a huge chance to learn from those people who were standing at the very roots of the civil society participation at ICANN. So that's indeed very insightful to have them here and to hear from them. It is also very inspiring, and it is thanks to them that today we all have the chance to participate directly in the policy making at ICANN. And now moving to the next part of our webinar, which is designed as the roundtable. I must say that, of course, we would like to, together with all of you, and to sit around the same table in some real physical conference room. But unless we don't have that opportunity, we really enjoy having you all here and talking to you today. And we now, for the roundtable, have a very inspiring group of people, all of whom are currently occupying leadership positions at ICANN, and also promoting the interests of the civil society. So I'm happy to welcome and to introduce today Jonathan Zuck, who is at-large advisory committee vice chair. Also Bruna Santos, who is chair of the Noncommercial Stakeholder Group. RAUL Plummer, who is chair of the not-for-profit Operational Consents Constituency. And in the absence of our chair of the Non-Commercial Users Constituency, Raphael Bourga-Lacroix, I would be making an intervention on behalf of the NCUC. So without any further delay, I would like to ask our guests today to address 3 key points. First of all, as we all know, the ICANN itself is a very complex environment, but also for the newcomers, it is quite complicated to understand why there are few groups who are actually promoting the interests of this and standing for the interests of the civil society. So to make it clearer for them, I would kindly ask you to, first of all, explain whom exactly does your group represent in terms of civil society, how you participate in ICANN processes, and the third one, how you actually promote the interests and the positions of the civil society within ICANN. And to start with, I'll invite Jonathan Zuck to take over.
Thanks, Olga. Thanks for having me as part of this webinar. As Olga said, my name is Jonathan Zuck, and I am the co-vice chair of the At-Large Advisory Committee. And the 15-member At-Large Advisory Committee is tasked with the nearly impossible mission of representing the interests of individual users. Much of ICANN is focused on a single transaction, which is to register a domain name. And what are the rules around that? The registrants and those that then provide the services to support that registration. We're tasked to look at the broader group of people that are just using the internet, whether it's to buy airline tickets, do email, or other work online, such as online banking. And so for that effort, what we're trying to do is look at the underlying interests of the individual users. And to do that, we've formed a fairly deep structure so that we can maintain kind of constant communication with as broad a group of people as possible. And so in addition to the ALAC, there's something we refer to as the at-large community, which is made up of a bunch of substructures that allow us to create the sort of virtuous feedback that allows us to try and determine and therefore advocate for the interests of these individual users. So there are organizations called regional at-large organizations in all of the main ICANN regions. So there's an African region, a Latin American and Caribbean region, a North American, European, and Asia Pacific regions. And then within each of these RAULs, or regional at-large organizations, their membership is made up of not only individuals, but also smaller organizations that are called at-large structures. So this might be a local internet society chapter or something like that, that would be a member of a RAUL. And so what we try to do is maintain a kind of feedback loop throughout this structure so that we're constantly in touch with those folks that are not directly a part of what ICANN does, but sometimes suffer the consequences of what ICANN does or does not do. So it's sort of the world of unintended consequences that becomes our bailiwick as the at-large community. We have been engaged throughout for many years in ICANN policy development and also ICANN structural reform. We worked in closely with the non-commercial stakeholder group in forming an accountability framework for ICANN as part of the transition away from the United States government. And we find more often than not that we are well aligned with the positions and the rights-based positions of the non-commercial stakeholder group. Sometimes there's friction because we are trying to do a balance of interests, and sometimes issues like consumer protection enter into the fray and then are in some tension with rights. And so those become points of friction for us with the non-commercial stakeholder group. But on the whole, we're aligned in trying to bring non-governmental and non-business interests to bear in ICANN policy development. We've recently created a course that will introduce you to the at-large community and how it operates, the history, how it's structured, and how we engage in policy development. I'm putting a link in the chat for those that are interested. This course was just developed. It's fresh off the presses. And I encourage you to explore what it is that we do and how we do it, and perhaps become engaged in those processes with us, and so that we might improve them. So that's our objective, is to always improve the individual end user experience and to watch out for the unintended consequences, the policies that get created within the ICANN policy world. I look forward to answering any of your questions about the at-large. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about this sort of advisory committee that works in a sort of orthogonal, I can't think of a better word, but, to the directly policy development process, and instead looks at this world of unintended consequences. Thanks a lot, and I'll see the rest of my time for questions, hopefully.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan, for joining us and for these insights into ALAC's work. With that, Bruna, I'd like to ask you, how is NCSG different from ALAC? What maybe we have also in similar, and why some newcomers should join specifically NCSG as opposed to ALAC, for example?
Hi. I wasn't prepared for the question either, but I think in terms of differences, I would say that NCSG, alongside with its constituencies, we do play a vital part in the supporting organization in GNSO's bottom-up multi-stakeholder policy making process. And that the main point that might make it different from us to ALAC is the fact that we not only elect representatives to the GNSO Council, which is the main policymaking forum, but we do also have the mandate and can serve on working groups as well, which can be another really good environment for you to get involved in this whole multi-stakeholder consensus-driven policymaking. And I would say that over the course of years, NCUC's positions, we have endorsed a lot of things related to ensuring users' privacy and data protection, fair and balanced domain name disputes, diversity and consumer choice, also upholding human rights, access to knowledge, and support for a multilingual internet and also global internet governance, among many other discussions and topics. So replying directly to your question, Olga, I would say that the main fact that makes it different from us at NCUC is this direct representation at the GNSO and also being part of the supporting organization. But in my remarks here, I would also like to point out something similar to maybe what Milton has said in terms of topics and new challenges. I think that ever since the beginning of the pandemic, civic activism and civil society, we have maybe assumed newer functions and identities. And now a good majority of movements and organizations have focused their actions in a more local way and have gained more local prominence. And this might affect us more directly because ICANN and ICANN's topics, right now we might have less incentives for having people around or even less volunteers due to the whole local issues and situations. So I would say that now, in light of this new kind of civil society balance or even dedication, maybe EDLOC and NCUC should work together in order to improve this participation, in order to bring more people around and bring people back to ICANN, maybe if we have this analysis that people have indeed left this environment. But I see good avenues for us working together in capacitating our members and also, showing the relevance. And also maybe this health emergency, when it starts to improve, this part of reintegrating the discussions and bringing those newer realities post-COVID to ICANN might also be a good space for action and improvement. If anything, the pandemic has reminded us of the relevance of the internet as a global and collective resource. And I think that the only way of protecting it for the future is to bring in more diverse groups and experiences. And that might be the main challenge for us, for at large and for everybody that represents civil society here. And last but not least, just to point out that working in improved mechanisms to create competition and avoid industry capture, focusing on protecting registrants and other consumers of the domain space name and in a meaningful way might also be a goal. And similar to what Milton mentioned, we need to be wary of what can be the more immediate challenges that are being brought up on us. DNIS, cybersecurity, all the afterwaves after this regulation. Also, all of the discussions that are happening, not only at ICANN, but at the IGF as well, and also in the digital cooperation discussions of upholding a multi-stakeholder policy and kind of participation. We have different models. They're kind of all being readdressed or like under study right now. And last but not least, content moderation subjects at the DNS level might be things that we have to look at the very immediate future, or once this pandemic ends. So I kind of went over your question, but just wanted to point out some other things about this. Thanks, Olga.
Thank you, Bruna. That's indeed all very important and very interesting. And thanks for raising all those issues. And while it might be complicated for a new person at ICANN to identify whether it's ALAC or NCSG, But I must say that there are some members who join both of these groups. It gets even more complicated when we go further into the structure of NCSG itself. And here I would like to invite RAUL to explain what NCUC is doing and what are the members who are joining your constituency. RAUL, can you hear us? I think you are muted.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, Raul.
Okay, yeah, my picture just froze here. But yeah, so I'm the chair of the not-for-profit operational concerns constituency inside the NCSG. And we are often asked, like, what is the EMPOC stand? What does the EMPOC stand for? And that's really the operational concerns of EMPOC are defined as issues arising from the use of GTLDs by the not-for-profit organizations to achieve their own mission. So we really want to spread information about domain name fraud, intellectual property abuse, privacy, security, stability, resiliency, as well as transparent domain registration process and continued use of domain names. While the corona has been going on, I think it's not just EMPOC, but the whole of civil society that's actually experienced quite a dramatic drop in activity, and I think something that we've done to sort of perhaps counter this drop. We've created this with the help of ICANN staff, especially Adam and his team. We've created this webinar that I suggest that everyone who is interested about EMPOC or even the rest of the civil society in ICANN has a look at. That has many issues that it is really, I think almost all issues of the civil society are covered in that webinar. And as one more thing, I would like to say that at the moment, our policy chair quit about a month ago or 1.5 months ago. And so we are currently without a policy chair. So if anyone, and I mean anyone, wants to be our policy chair, they should apply. Send an email straight to me. That's raul@npoc.org. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Raul. That was a good promotional campaign, I must say. And now talking about NCUC, let's say as the last puzzle in all this picture, that would probably be similar as not-for-profit operational concerns constituency, NCUC, which stands for Non-Commercial Users Constituency, is just another constituent part of the NCSG, which Bruna was presenting, and we are operating under the generic name supporting organization. And as Bruna said, probably one of the main features which distinguish us from is that we directly participate in policy making, and that we have influence on those policies which are being adopted at ICANN. And we do promote the interests of our members, which, by the way, can be both individuals and organizational members. We promote those interests in many different ways because we encourage our members to participate in working groups, to participate in public comments. We also might issue statements when there is some specific issue of concern. We also run communications via our mailing list, and of course we try to collaborate as much as possible with other stakeholders within ICANN environment. And I must say it's a bit of a challenge to get new members on board during this pandemic times, but hopefully this will come to an end at some point, and we will be able again to have some fresh blood on board, because as you all know, for civil society, it is quite complicated to stay permanently engaged into policy development process at ICANN, because for many of them, it is just voluntary work, while there are also other people who are paid for this exact same work, which has been done within the working groups. But of course, it is very important for everyone who is joining any of our constituencies or stakeholder groups or advisory committee. It is very important to stay engaged, to learn from the people who have been here for years, to ask for advice, and to keep trying to be the pen holder, to engage into the working groups, and to read all those bulks of information which is freely and publicly available online, just so that that indeed helps new people to later on meaningfully contribute to the policy discussions. And this is also something I like to stress, that in case you still haven't decided where you want to be, which part of ICANN, you are always welcome to join NCUC, NCSG, and we are also, same as Jonathan was describing, the division into the regions. Same we have in the NCUC, we have a regional representative for each in the executive committee for each region, and we are always available and happy to help you to get some onboarding phase, and then to participate in the policy discussions. So that would be it from my side, and I think with that we can move to the most interesting probably part of questions and answers. So Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Olga. That was quite enlightening. I mean, from all the speakers, now we know better some of the things we can do and groups we can gravitate towards. I just want to ask the audience if there's anyone who has got questions. I saw John Moore asked a question. I don't know if he wants to speak to the mic and just ask his question. So we've got about 5 minutes to ask questions. Is anyone with a question, or is there any question in the chat that I'm not seeing that we could quickly just pick up? I mean, a lot of issues have been raised, so. Okay, Kathy, you have your hands up.
Sure. The key question, thanks, Benjamin. How do we work together better? How do we serve the common interests that we've identified together? How do we work together better to represent them in ICANN? That would be my question. I'd love your opinions on that.
Thank you, Kathy. The question is for everyone. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes for question and answers. Okay. Is there anyone who wants to contribute to how you think some of the experts who have spoken today could help you get more involved? There's a whole lot that's been mentioned today. Is it a concept you need to participate in helping develop, or directly at the policy development process? Oh, Bruna's hands are up. I think you could ask us the question, or
yeah,
go ahead.
No, just a quick answer. This is Bruna again for the record. And I'm not sure if I'm the expert you're looking for, Ben, but just to say that we did do a really good job previously in doing joint outreaches and having those sessions between at large and NCUC or NCSG, and maybe this is something we can take back or start go back to doing maybe for ICANN 73, maybe, not too sure. But then just to highlight that having these spaces for exchanges and also further conversations on topics is something that was good. We had a few issues along the way, but was always good and very valuable. So maybe going back to that is just a start, Kathy.
Okay, thank you, Bruna. I need to restate, the question is, how can we work together? So we're lucky we've got more time to talk about this. So Adam, could you please go ahead?
Yeah, and thanks. Sorry, I thought I'd better stay there. I'm sure any other call is going to spend 5 or 10 minutes talking about its agenda, so I'll stay here. And yeah, just from what Olga said, I know we've spoken a bit about outreach in the past, but it's very difficult while we're all online. So you're all at large. Jonathan mentioned that there were new courses from the at large. We know that this webinar series is building off a series of additional budget requests that the NCUC and NCSG have done, and you have courses online. We, with the EMPOC leadership, did a series of webinars about registrant rights, about operational concerns. How about some joint inreach rather than joint outreach? Talk about the courses you have, the way you try to encourage different people to come into, how you help your current members get more involved. And there's a lot of materials out there. And does it matter? Of course, well, I shouldn't say that. Of course, it matters where that person decides to, you know, spend their time in ICANN. But the most important thing to start off with is getting them interested in ICANN. And you have a lot of people, and hopefully you will be able to, you know, fight amongst yourselves and get those people into your respective groups. But really think about some joint inreach. Use the courses you have, use the expertise you have, and I'm sure staff will be willing to support best we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Joint inreach. So we should what we already have, try to make more use of them. Jonathan Zuck had something to say as well. If you didn't read it, he said, we share an interest in greater non-commercial participation in ICANN policy development. That core goal unites us, that core value that we all have, non-commercial interest. Any other question, please? We still have some time to burn. I really want to encourage new participants to really voice up, just say something. Okay. I'm not seeing new questions, and I'm not seeing new hands. Any question? Is there any other speaker who wants to say something just to add to the mix? Oh, Marita, I've been asked to invite you to speak. Is Marita on the call? Hello. Marita.
Yes, hello. This is Marita Mull for the record, but I don't think I asked to speak. I see Sebastian's hand up, but I just perhaps, you know, I want to emphasize my note in the chat that we're all here to work together and we need to respect each other's views and respect our differences, but work together as a team because it's so incredibly important. Thank you.
Thank you. We have to respect each other's views. That resonates with me. Sebastian, can you unmute and just take the floor? Sebastian.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry, I was following on Facebook because doing other things. Sorry. Thank you for inviting me to make. I wanted to make a comment. So yes, definitely in the question of multi-stakeholder model, we need to have some in-depth discussion and try to work together. I feel that also some of the recommendation from the ATRT3 could be of interest that we exchange on that. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to make a little announcement or some marketing or teasing. We are trying to organize in the week between the prep week and the meeting itself, a meeting where we will invite different stakeholder representatives to talk to our members of the members. That means that within at large, and sorry, I must have explained who I am. I am Sébastien Bachelet. I am currently the chair of the RAUL, one of the RAULs that was described by Jonathan earlier. I used to be other things. It was in ICANN, as it is my 20th anniversary. But we will try to invite the member of our members. That means the member of the at-large structure. We usually interact with the leaders of the structure. And what we would like to have, it's the roots, the members of the members. And maybe some of you will be interested to join. And it will be open. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you, Sebastian. That's an invite going out to everyone from Sebastian. I also, at this point, I want to encourage Luana to ask her question or his question. Could you please ask your question, please? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so the question that I've been having was how many applications have we had since the pandemic started and how much the application process has been affected, because I've been part of the executive committee for a while and I've reviewed, I think, one round of new membership applications for NCSG. I don't know how that has progressed, and before that, how many rounds there were. So I suspect that this has been severely affected, but I think some numbers would help just to actually base the claim that, new membership has been declining because of the pandemic, and see how we could correct that. That was my question. Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Can I jump in? Really quick. Okay. No, this is Brenda again for the record, and apologies, Ben, for jumping in. I'm gonna take a look at the system just so we were able to tell the list and if the number has is any different from last year. But one thing I wanted to point out is that we have had a few members either leaving the stakeholder group or any of the constituencies. I do think that this 1.5 years were very exceptional in terms of everybody being either very tired or burnout or anything like that. So I do see a decrease in terms of like membership numbers, and as people are mentioning, like working parents and many other issues going on. Yeah, just to say that I'm trying to take a look at the system, but I cannot find that number right now. But I promise that as soon as I have, I can send it to the list and even to at-large members as well. So yeah, we have had some departures, Joanna, but I don't know if that affected us like that much. I know one or like maybe a very few situations, but we did have departure. But I would also say that's not too different from other years in terms of departures. But I need to take a further look then.
Okay, thank you, Bruna. So I'll just go over to Gabriel to quickly ask this question. I think we're almost running out of time now. Gabriel.
Hello.
Can you please ask your question?
My name is Gabriel Kwache from Ghana. I'm a new member of ICANN, and I would like to know the motivation to enable me to go to the top to let my voice be heard in ICANN. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone want to take on that? He wants to know what is motivation to engage.
I can take that, Benjamin.
Please go ahead.
Hi, Gabriel. Welcome. Basically, what actually inspires us to be active in this space is are the problems that either people that live in your location face to access to domain names, or other problems, confiscation of domain names, or other rights that you care about, and then you can identify those and come and join various groups that can solve that problem. Also, you can have a global view and want to save the world, which you can also advocate for human rights in the DNS and privacy, freedom of expression, and all sorts of things that we talked about at the NCUC and NCSG. The important thing is to identify the problems that you really care about and some people are facing in your community or globally, and then see where those problems are being expressed. And if they are not, then you need to bring them to the table. And there's a long and complicated process for opening any kind of new issue, but still there are ways to inform people about it and raise awareness. One thing that I did, for example, was because there was sanctioned countries had their issue at ICANN. We haven't done much about it, but we came up with a really good report, which we hope it will be implemented. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Jonathan, Zuck is going to try and also intervene, but I must say we are totally out of time. So yes, Jonathan.
Thanks, Benjamin. I think it's a great question, and I think one of the biggest challenges faced by ICANN is the inability for people to participate in a periodic fashion. In other words, to date, participation in ICANN has felt like a lifelong commitment. It's almost a full-time job to participate in the complexities of ICANN policy development. Things take a very long time, et cetera. The only real mechanism that ICANN currently has for what I would call periodic participation or focused participation, where I have a single interest, is the public comment process. And I think that's not enough. I think we need to do a better job of breaking down the big questions that we address into smaller questions and making those questions accessible and getting feedback on them from a broader range of people that have individual sort of domain expertise, so that we're not just a group dominated by those folks whose business is the internet. And I think that there's a challenge ahead for ICANN to allow for people to kind of dip in and dip out that we all need to work on going forward.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I see quite a handful of persons are agreeing with you. I still want to encourage more questions, because I think I was thinking I had 60 minutes meeting, but I think I'm still blessed with some time. So, okay. Marita, is that a new hand or an old one?
It's a new hand, Benjamin, and there never was an old one, I don't think, unless you're seeing a hand I haven't seen.
No.
Anyway, yeah, I'll just add to what Jonathan said, what's been said about getting involved at various levels. That is particularly difficult. But I must say that within the at-large structure, it is possible for people to get involved in the RALOs, the regional at-large structures, and go to meetings once a month or so and learn about the issues and what's going on without having to sort of get fully immersed into it. It's a way of more slowly and gently getting into it, and then maybe getting immersed when you have the time and energy. So that's another thing that we could say, that people can move in that direction. Go to go look at the at-large structures, see what particular area you might belong to. You can become an individual member, or you can be a member of one of the groups and participate that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Marita. Bruno?
Yes, on that same note, NCUC has a policy call every single month that's pretty much open to all members. If you're a newcomer, or if you have been around for a while but don't really know how to start working in the policy field, it's pretty much welcome to everyone. And also, just to emphasize that we do not have restrictions in having members being from ALAC and NCSG at the same time. So everybody is very much welcome. And last but not least, we do want to go back to having more webinars like this and more opportunities of interactions with newcomers or anyone that's interested in NCSG and NCUC and NPOC. So just to also congratulate NCUC on this webinar. And this is something that we should have been doing from the very beginning of the pandemic, maybe. But all things aside and all the restrictions we have had, it's really good. And I'm really happy to see everybody here and to have this chance to see and hear everyone. So we're going back to doing that. So that's just to mention that to everybody.
Thank you, Bruno. On a personal note, I also wanted to reemphasize that question that was asked. How can we work together in the face of the pandemic, this virtual reality? So how can we really, really work together? I mean, maybe concrete or decisive actions moving forward. I would really like to hear from Milton. What a coincidence. Go ahead, please.